Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Dream Big podcast. I hope it's been a great week for you. If it's like the rest of it's been filled with a couple things have gone right, a couple things have gone wrong, and a couple things you're waiting to find out which bucket to put that in. And so what a great time to have some guests. Sazan and Stevie Hendrix have written a book called A Real Good Life. And man, I want one of those. So welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you guys are on.
Oh, thanks for having us,
Bob.
You basically just said we passed the test. We took this brand building course years ago, and they said whenever you're writing a book, you want the title to fulfill the blank that says "I want a."
Yeah, and you
so
said
we did
it right
it.
now.
You want a real good life?
Yes, I want a book that just says you've won.
Yeah.
But then because I'm kind of like, I would do ONE, like you've won it. Then there's
creative.
There's something deep. And then they'll be so disappointed to find out I don't have deep thoughts.
Oh, please. Come on, Bob.
But you guys do. You gave simple moments that bring joy, connection, and love. Why this book and why that title? For those that write books, you try to kind of make a promise on the front and then fulfill it in the pages that follow. So why this promise, and what have you experienced firsthand?
You know, this book has been such a God-filled journey for us as content creators and influencers that started this journey 10 years ago, not knowing what the heck we were doing by sharing little bits and pieces of our world and our life before social media was like really a thing. And I never in a million years, if somebody said, dream big and tell me what on that list would you love to do? I never even entertained the thought of writing a book. I just never even put myself in that category. I never thought that was going to be something I would do in my life. And it's amazing what happens when you really let go and you let God, right? As cliche as that sounds, because he cornered us back in 2018. We had been in this journey of being influencers for, oh my gosh, at that point, what was it? Like 6 years into it. And I had a very clear vision from God that showed me visuals of like my generation. And it was like looking down, seeing all of my generation, like with tape over their mouths. And I said, what does that mean? And I don't know, long story short, over the course of my life, this is how I even came to knowing Jesus was I've had little glimpses and glimmers into God's world, into the kingdom. I got saved through my dreams. And in a crazy way throughout my career, it's been very much like that. Like God will stop me as I'm dreaming about something and he'll kind of redirect my path. And so in 2018, when I had that vision, I thought, well, thus far, I've been sharing a lot of our life. We've been sharing beautiful photos and kind of trying to give people what we thought at that time was even a good life. But I think we were missing the mark. And I felt like I needed to have that sort of coming to Jesus moment again in my life. And I think what God was telling us and what I now know is like, I need you guys to share your voices. Why aren't you speaking more? And so that's when we launched our podcast, which you've been on. That was so fun. And that's when the whole book thing came about. And then that journey was very much like, well, now what? What do we write about, God? What do you want this book to be about?
I think too, for us, Sazan and I we come from very like humble starts. You know, it's perfect that your podcast is called Dream Big. When I met Sazan in college, you know, we were both in the TV newscast, which was just hilarious. You go back and watch these clips. You got college students running a newscast. It's live. I mean, every mistake in the book, every awkward moment. I mean, that's how we met. We met doing the college newscast.
Go on.
And I remember
give them that anchor laugh that you
welcome
do.
to NTTV Nightly News. I'm Steve Hendrix and you're Sazan Barzani.
Thanks, Steve.
You know, we met like dreaming big. We met, you know, in the newsroom and I was like, I'm moving to LA and I'm going to be an actor. And she was like, well, I'm moving to LA and I'm going to be Juliana Rancic's replacement. And I was like, we'll see. You know, and we were two dreamers because Sazan and I both came from pretty humble beginnings. My dad was a carpenter, you know, Jesus lifestyle. And Sazan's family was a family of immigrants, you know, and neither of us came from much, but something I think in our DNA, God placed this. I remember watching a Michael Jordan movie when I was 5 years old and I was like, I want to be like Mike. And my dad was like, dude, there's no way you're going to be like Mike because you're probably going to be about 5'9" and white. So, and I was like, okay, we can adjust. I had other dreams, and Sazan was the same as me. You know, we dreamed big. We moved out to LA and we just got our butts kicked. You know what I mean? It was like, welcome to LA, smack. And and life didn't turn out the way that we planned for it to. The things that we wanted that were on our dream board for our careers didn't come to fruition. But in fact, along the way, we found out when we would hit roadblocks or we would hit dead ends that in fact, it was just God redirecting us, you know, saying, yeah, I've actually got something better for you. So you're going to need to trust me. And that came with a lot of frustration. That also comes with a lot of friction, you know, when we're charting our course towards what we think is our good life, the good life that we've been entitled to, that we've been promised. And what we've realized about the good life is that all along, God has a real good plan for all of us, but it doesn't look like exactly what we think it's going to look like. But we have to be willing to pivot and be willing to follow him wherever he leads. And even if it's through massive disappointment, even if it's through loss. And those are things that Sazan and I experienced in our life journey so far. And so this is really a collection of stories that it's meant to inspire anybody and everybody, but it's from our faith-based background and how we've had a God or a Christian Christ worldview. And so we really realized that our goal now is not to just be people you see on Instagram, but it's really to be agents of good. And it's really to be people that help people win. We want to see other people win. We want to see people live a real good life and hang their hat up at the end of the day or at the end of their life and say, you know what, it's been good. I've seen good. I've done good. I've been a part of good. And we want that for ourselves. And so we want it for everyone else.
What are some really practical ideas you have? There's somebody that's been pursuing an ambition. They've been pursuing, it could be a relationship, pursuing something that mattered a lot to them. And then they get this inexplicable no or some roadblock, as you mentioned, along the way. And then sometimes the way that it's characterized, it doesn't seem like it reflects the way that life works, that we compress things in our writing and our thoughts. We say, so then and it's almost like after the word just, you got to like block and delete, because oftentimes what we'll do is we'll have a long period of time of indecision. There's a period of time of mourning, or there's a period of just time, but sometimes it can be compressed in our mind or when we're describing to somebody else. So then I just shifted and I invented medicine. So does that make sense? That,
yes.
How do we deal with like that idea of patience, which isn't in a lot of people's word a day calendar, including mine? Like that isn't a defining characteristic. So give us some words about that. What do you do when there's a hope that you had and then an inexplicable pause that you have to encounter?
Sazan, go for it. You're the pivot queen.
I'm the pivot queen. I think what I've learned, Bob, is like when it comes to like practical tips, it's just so interwoven with like, you've got to have faith. And if you don't believe like in what we believe, you've got to believe in something. It's like you have to believe even in yourself when you're in those moments. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I have set my sights out on like this thing, like it's a specific thing, like I'm going to get there. I want to achieve this. And then halfway along the way, right, you hit the rocks or you realize, what was I chasing? Why am I at a dead end? I think for a faithful person, there is no quitting though. A faithful person, you don't quit, you redirect and you kind of start realizing, wait, this could be a growing pains thing. Why am I going to let this define me in this hour? Why am I going to let this shatter something? And so I think what I've learned is if I have an amazing idea or something that I'm really passionate about, before I tell anybody about it, before I go, write it on the walls of my Facebook and Instagram, what I'll do is like, I'll write my dreams in like the note section of my phone. And what I'll do is I'll just kind of let it sit there. And when I'm driving or when I'm at the gym or when I'm just doing the most random things, if those things kind of revisit my mind, my thoughts, my spirit, I go back there. I go back to that place and I just continuously check in with those things before feeling like I need to like start executing. Sometimes we feel like we have to race to get there first when you have a great idea. And I believe we all have million dollar ideas inside of us. And so often we are the thieves that take it away from ourselves in a sense, because we just have so much disbelief. And I would say, just like, before you beat yourself up, before you quit on those things, like, write them down and see what happens, whether it comes to fruition or not. I have so many things written in my phone that I've written over the years, and things that I've deleted. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't know what I was thinking with that. But just don't keep everything up in your mind and just expect it to just stay there. Like, I would just really be practical about what you dream about and write it down, pray about it, revisit it, and see what you keep going back to, see what your heart keeps stirring towards. Like, that's my practical advice.
Yeah. And I think too, we have to recognize, like, Sazan and I think early in our lives we were never the winners. It felt like every raffle you'd enter in life, it was no, you definitely did not win, and it was like, why not me? Why am I never the winner? How come I can't win? How come I can't have the nice things? And, it was always that for both of us. I think we have to realize that in God saying no, or allowing no to happen, that there's something really divine there. There's something he wants to share with us when we're severely disappointed by life and by our dreams being crushed. Because I think we have to understand God's heart in those moments towards us. Because I remember, like, I wanted to go to LA to be an actor, and I was like, dude, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna be a dog. Like, I'm gonna get it done and I'm gonna make it happen. And I was like, I don't have any quit in me. And I remember the moment when God told me to lay it down. And I was like, why would you let me believe in this for 15 years? I've prayed to you. I've sought you for it. I've told you I would let it go, but you let me move out here and you let me go through all of this. And now I'm here and I can do this. And I can do this. You made me for this. And now all of a sudden you're saying no. I'm like, why would you do that to me? But I didn't realize he was doing it for me, but he was also doing it with me. He was sharing in my disappointment, but he knew that he had to lead me on that path to teach me something. And it was just about surrendering the most precious things. It was the Abraham moment where, this is my son. Why would you tell me to kill him? Well, I need you to be willing to kill him so that I can use you for something wonderful, because I need to trust you. And so I really think we have to understand the Father's heart towards us. And in great disappointment, if we can understand his heart and just say, you know what, God, I know that this doesn't feel good. It doesn't look good, but I know that you are still good and you are still loved. That doesn't change. You haven't been good. It's not God has been good. He is good, and he's good towards you at all times, and his plans for you are good. And so I just believe that we have to know that, number one, and it's a story of trust. It's saying, like, you know what, I trust you in all things. Like, if my mom dropped dead tomorrow, you're still good. And that's really hard because my mom's still alive, but I've had that conversation with him where I'm like, you know what, God, if my mom dropped dead tomorrow, it'd be really hard for me to believe that you're good. But maybe I'm going to tell myself now that you are good despite that, but I can still be angry. I can still be upset, and I can still grieve and still realize that your heart for me is nothing but good. And so if it is, then you've got good in store for me now and in the future. And so I think we just have to realize that, like, God is so on our side. He's so our champion, and he waits for us every morning. He never distances himself from us. Even when we feel like we've dropped the ball or we made a mistake, he's like, it's okay. Yeah. I still have plans to place your steps. And the Bible says that many, many times. And so I believe it's when we trust him, and even when we hit those really painful roadblocks and those no's, he's really going to use those to catapult us into a deeper level of intimacy with him that will further call us into our destiny.
What do you think about these two things? You can have an ambition. Think of that like the x-axis, like draw a line from left to right. And then opportunities would be like the y-axis. And so where the X and the Y cross is where you want to be. So, like, let's say if you have an ambition, I want to help people. And a lot of people have that ambition. So it'd be a very broad general, but there's a lot of dots on that line. Different ways that you can help people. And then the opportunity is the thing that is just like right in front of you. And so if you find some ambitions that are really lasting, like big and beautiful, the things that, not that you're known for, but the things that you'd be remembered for. So think of these as all of your ambitions. And so instead of one dot on a page, it's just like so many dots along this ambition of being helpful or being loyal, or think of all the attributes you want to be known for. And then all those thousands of dots are look like a line. And then the opportunity is the thing that comes in front of you. It could be a big one or an unlikely one or whatever. So when somebody said that I had this one prayer, I prayed and prayed and prayed for this one opportunity to come. Sometimes I'm trying to think a little bit broader, that there's a lot of dots along that line, a lot of ways that I can express it. Going to medical school could be a really neat way to do that, but having a Band-Aid could be a really neat way to do that. So maybe pass the MCATs or get the score that you needed, but say, gosh, for a nickel, I can have a Band-Aid. And so what I'll do is that opportunity, that is going to be my one and only. So talk to us as we kind of wrap up about how people can approach. They have this idea, they want to live a really, not just a good life, but laden within that meaning of good is it's lasting, it's purposeful, it counts. So give us a closing idea about like how to figure out what those ambitions are, how to aim for those, and then using these simple moments that come along to find this like joy, connection, love.
That's such a great way of describing that. And that really even inspired me. Stevie and I sitting here, it's like on the outside, people might think like, oh my God, you guys have reached 1 million followers on Instagram. You guys have done this and that. And, like you can easily say like, oh, they quote unquote have it all. This couple that's smiling on the cover of the book. I myself personally feel like for my career path and what I have found that I'm passionate about, which is I'm such a connector and a storyteller. And I love how the two can bring people together and really transform lives. And I realized that how I'm going to do that is going to be totally up to God, because anytime that I try to steer the ship, OMG, that ship, it goes in all crazy sorts of directions. I've realized that my strengths have been when God presents an opportunity to me, I need to come to a place in myself where it's almost like you reach the end of yourself a little bit, where you're humble and you look at that opportunity and you really, really look at it and you don't get critical on yourself. It's easy to have the doubts that weigh in today's world of noise and distraction, like, oh, can't do that. That's going to take forever for it to succeed. Or, you want shortcuts and you want to go in the fast lane. So my encouragement is like, don't feel like you have to live in a world today where you have to know your niche and like all of the things that the world feeds you on what a good life is and what success means. Success is so disguised in so many different things. I cannot tell you how my heart fills up when I don't even do things that have to pertain to my career. It's literally like connecting with a neighbor on something that we're both equally passionate about. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just talked to you for 30 minutes about this and this set my heart on fire. And then you realize success can be in the form of sitting with your children and being a mom and being a wife. And that's okay. You don't have to put yourself in a box and say, I can only do this and I can only be that. So I'm not going to open my mind to all of the endless opportunities and possibilities that God has. So I just want to encourage people to focus their eyes to see the good despite the challenges in their life today. I want to encourage the people listening that instead of romanticizing about your future, how about we fall in love with today and right now? There's so many things in front of you that are beautiful. There's so much good despite the hard. And I think that's what a good life is, Bob. It's that good and hard can actually coexist and you can live a beautiful life.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm so glad you asked this question to pick off what Sazan. Like last night, to be honest with you guys, we were really just asking that question ourselves. Yeah. We're like, God, we wrote this book and we put a lot of effort into it, but what if it doesn't turn out the way that we wanted? What if people don't respond the way that we wanted? Are we a failure? And we asked, and I said, you know what? No, we're not, because we did what we felt like God told us to do. And then this morning I woke up and I'm always thinking, I'm like, God, where does my life rank on the success barometer? Not the world's success, but like your success, right? Because I have all these lofty ideas of things that I want to do that I think are good ideas, or things that are maybe could make a lot of money or whatever. And these are all my ideas. And then I literally was like, what does a successful life look like? And I just felt God was like, well, my son was a carpenter. I was just like, right. Like Jesus chose by choice to be a carpenter. What was he really modeling there? My dad was a carpenter. And I was just thinking about I remember working with my dad and working with our hands, and we were very precise and we took our time, and we crafted something. It was something of quality, something made with care. And I'm like, man, if Jesus chose to do that and chose to take his time, then maybe he was giving us permission to take our time and to do things well, but not for success and for ambition to be the number one driver, but people should be our number one driver. So maybe I'll get to heaven and God will say, yeah, hey, you actually did that business that you set out to do and you hit all those accolades, but you never had any time. You never had any time for those people that passed you by. And so you place that above people, above love, above community. And I believe that God's calling us, our generation too, as we've become so distracted and we're so stimulated every moment by social media. He's really challenging us, I think, to draw back, right? And to, like, for us, a huge challenge for us on the daily is balancing being two entrepreneurs, two social media personalities, but we've got 3 little kids and a newborn. And so we realized we just won't sacrifice our children and time with our children. So God, we need your help because we can't get around the fact that we have a major book launch and a newborn who's feeding every 3 hours. I mean, that is I felt like you did this on purpose. So if you did this on purpose, God, there has to be meaning. There has to be lesson. And I think he's just saying I don't want you to do it all. I really don't want you to do it all. I want you to spend time with me. I want you to spend time with others. I want you to feel connected to me and to yourself. And I just believe that we've got to make those priority. And I think that's what will lead us to good. And I believe success will come, but it's not just about that kind of success. And so I don't know. I'm just allowing God to continue to place us on that meter and say, God, where do I rank? Because I don't know where to look for that answer in the world. So I need you to tell me.
Yeah. And in God's eyes, it's I'm learning, and I've actually had a lot of very prophetic dreams as of lately and visions. And I've been seeing how God has been speaking to us. And maybe this will bless anybody listening too, that why do we feel like we have to put a big production on for the things in our life that we're passionate about, that we want to see the things we want to see come to fruition? We think it has to be this big, larger than life, grand production in order for it to succeed. God is so content with just the simple and, the discovering the simple moments of connection, joy, and love. I mean, it's just in every pocket of your life, every category of your life. God is so pleased with you when you take that pressure off of yourself, and instead of making it about the production quality, just focus on the direction of your heart and where is that pointing. And I think that's what we're learning in this season as social media influencers, where yes, you have people on, you have goals that you want to reach and numbers that you want to hit. But what we were humbled by was that reality of God is just so pleased with us showing up and being ourselves. We don't need to overthink how we're going to speak, how we're going to talk. Just be yourself and let God help you figure out the rest. And I think that has given us so much peace in this season, having a newborn, having a book coming out into the world.
You have a lot going on. Really.
We're getting our butt kicked. It's great.
We're celebrating with you, and just so glad. The book is A Real Good Life. It's released October 10th. And so if you ever want to do a solid for an author, you pre-buy it. That lets Amazon have enough books on the release day. Because if you just say, I'm just going to get it when it releases, it isn't about monetizing. It's that they'll have enough so that it doesn't run out, which is such a disappointment for an author when they run out. That's is when it says sold out, we'll get it to you in a month. Pre-order the book, A Real Good Life, Sazan and Stevie Hendrix. You guys, thanks for being on Dream Big Podcast, and everybody listening, keep swinging for the fences. All right. I'm cheering for you. Talk to you next week.
Thanks, Bob.